I was in the sanctuary, the back prep station of L'Avenir, the only blind spot the cameras didn't hit. We had just pushed through a 200-cover lunch service where I literally tweezered micro cilantro onto scallop crudo for 3 hours. All I wanted, all my soul required, was the purest, laziest, most unpretentious food known to man. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I had my knife. I had a dollop of strawberry jam. I was at peace. And then he appeared. "Hold," a voice whispered. Derek, the social media optimizer the owner hired, stepped into my personal space. He looked at my sandwich with the grave intensity of a bomb squad technician assessing a wire. "Ilara," he said, his voice dripping with unwarranted pity, "you're approaching this entirely wrong. You're treating this as a sustenance. I'm treating this as architecture." I stared at him. I had a culinary degree from Le Cordon Bleu and a James Beard nomination, but sure, Derek in his slim fit athleisure polo was about to teach me how to make a PB&J. He immediately pointed his calipers at my bread. It was our house-made 48-hour fermented sourdough, a literal work of art. "First point of failure, the substrate," he announced. "You have selected a high hydration sourdough. It looks impressive, yes, but look closer at that crumb structure." I looked at the clock. 10 minutes left. "High hydration means significant pocketing," he lectured, gesturing wildly. "Each of those air pockets is a potential reservoir for jam migration. You are creating a structural vulnerability. You don't build a foundation on scaffolding, Ilara. You build it on granite." I took a slow breath, inhaling the scent of my ruined break. "Derek, it's a snack." "It's a manifesto," he countered, entirely deadpan. He pulled out a clipboard. I kid you not, the man had a diagram labeled mortar interface. He took the peanut butter from my hand. It was an organic, smooth roast. I like it smooth. It spreads easy. "Second failure. Rheology," he declared, tapping the lid like he was kicking the tires of a used car. "You cannot use smooth peanut butter for structural integrity. Smooth provides lubrication. What you want is friction. You need crunchy peanut butter. The nut fragments act as aggregate. They are the gravel in our cement slurry." He grabbed a jar of crunchy peanut butter from the pantry and began to spread. He didn't spread it like food. He spackled it like a man trying to flip a house in one weekend. "We are not merely putting food on bread," he explained, using his digital calipers to measure the thickness of the peanut butter. "This layer must be uniform to within 0.05 millimeters. Any deviation will cause uneven load bearing during the first bite. If your foundation gives, your structure fails. I call this phase the peanut butter moat." I rubbed my temples. I could feel a migraine starting behind my left eye. "The mistake amateurs make," he continued, layering on a half a pound of peanut butter, "is seeing peanut butter as flavor. It is not flavor. It is a structural base layer. The flavor is incidental. The integrity is essential." My break was down to 7 minutes. My blood sugar was crashing. I bypassed him and reached for the open jar of strawberry jam. He physically intercepted my wrist. His grip was firm, like a disappointed father stopping a toddler from touching a hot stove. "Stop!" he cried. The shout echoed into the main kitchen. A sous chef dropped a pan. I looked at his hand on my wrist, rapidly calculating whether stabbing him in the throat with a butter knife would be considered a fireable offense or justifiable homicide. "Wait, let me explain," he whispered intensely, leaning in. "This jam, it is not ready. Have you considered the Maillard reaction?" I blinked. The Maillard reaction is the chemical process of amino acids and reducing sugars browning under heat, like searing a steak or baking a crust. This was a jar of cold, crushed fruit. You see, he began, his voice rich with absolute, unshakable confidence. Jam is essentially a high fructose pectin suspension. Applying it in its raw state creates an immediate moisture disparity. If we introduce the jam chaos before we have achieved surface stabilization of the peanut butter, we risk structural delamination. I couldn't speak. I was paralyzed by the sheer magnificent audacity of his ignorance. If you apply that raw sugar suspension to this dense lipid layer, he continued, totally oblivious to my stunned silence, the natural humidity of the room combined with the microscopic ambient heat will trigger a premature Maillard optimization. We are essentially toasting the jam inside the sandwich before it even enters the mouth. Derek, I managed to squeak out, that's not what Maillard means. Precisely, he nodded, completely ignoring me. He had taken the knife from me entirely now. He was in the zone. You see, Alara, he said, looking past me into the middle distance, the PB&J is not merely food. It is our world. The peanut butter? This is civilization. Dense, rigid, predictable, foundation first. It is the law. He began to place tiny, calculated dots of jam into the exact geometric center of his peanut butter fortress. But this jam? This is raw emotion. This is entropy. This is chaos. Amateurs just smear chaos all over the law. They create anarchy. He pointed the calipers at the edge of the bread crust. Look at this perimeter. This is the DMZ. This zone must remain 100% sterile of all chaotic jam elements. If jam breaches the crust barrier, the entire sandwich collapses morally and physically. We are compartmentalizing raw human emotion with the viscous grip of the state. My break was over. I was actively losing money standing here, but I couldn't look away. I was watching a train wreck in slow motion, narrated by a guy who thinks he invented trains. He placed the top piece of sourdough onto his mortar-heavy foundation. Then he took the flat side of a spatula and pressed down, hard. I am applying exactly 3.4 newtons of force to achieve uniform viscous distribution, he stated. It was a brick. He had made a 2-pound structurally dense brick of dry sourdough and thick peanut butter with a highly pressurized pocket of jelly trapped in the dead center. It is finished, he proclaimed, holding it up like Rafiki holding Simba. Behold, the optimized PB&J. Observe the crust perimeter. Pristine. No delamination. No jam migration. This, Elira, is how you build a future. I nodded slowly. I didn't say a word. I just crossed my arms and waited. He stood tall, preparing to consume his masterpiece. He raised the dense architectural marvel to his mouth. He looked at me, a smug smile of victory playing on his lips. He had sealed the edges too well. He had compressed the center too hard. He had essentially built a hydraulic press for fruit preserves. Because the perimeter DMZ was locked tight with dry crust and thick peanut butter, the pressurized chaotic element sought the only available exit point, straight out the back. A crimson deluge shot out the back of the sandwich, completely bypassing his mortar and landing dead center on his chest. He froze. His jaws stopped moving. The caliper slipped from his hand and clattered onto the prep table. He looked down at the Rorschach test of failure expanding across his sternum. I broke. I couldn't help it. The stress of the lunch, the loss of my break, the sheer, unrelenting mansplaining about the Maillard reaction, it all bubbled up into a massive, echoing belly laugh. I had to lean against the stainless steel counter to keep from falling over. Derek stood there holding his collapsing manifesto, jelly dripping off his shirt. He swallowed his dry, overly dense bite. He cleared his throat, trying to salvage the last shred of his dignity. As I suspected, he said, his voice a little higher than before. This proves the fundamental unpredictability of non-Newtonian chaotic fluids in high-compression systems. The important thing, Alara, is that the crust delamination was successfully mitigated. I wiped a tear from my eye, grabbed my apron, and headed back to the line. "Sure thing, Derek," I called back. "Let me know when you figure out how to optimize a washing machine." If you've ever had someone aggressively explain your own job to you, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of unwanted confidence, and let me know in the comments, what is the most audacious thing someone has ever mansplained to you?